Happy Sunday, everybody. I am DJ Riley. I am back with my top 5 NBA picks for these Sunday NBA matchups. But if you were following along yesterday, we did end up going again 2-4. So 2 days in a row, we have now gone 2-4, and we just missed out on this, where Fred VanVleet, who was my pick of the day, was the one that hit, and he cashed this out very easily, hitting 14, 15 plus to what we needed him to do. So he absolutely dominated that line. Keontae George dominated his points line as well, but LeBron James and Nikola Jokic both missed out on theirs. So it was that single game that kind of screwed the whole thing over for me. But nonetheless, I am back with my top 5 picks for this. But before we jump into that, make sure that you are checking the link in the description, because down there you will find Daily Grind Fantasy, which is one of the top positive EV betting tools that you can use, and you will hear me reference that daily, guys. And again, I can't say this enough about Daily Grind Fantasy, but really it does everything, all of the research, all of the work for you. It puts all of the numbers that all of these other sports books have for you, and they're comparing them to what the daily fantasy apps. It's not just PrizePicks, it's Underdog, it's Flip, it's all of these other daily fantasy sports apps. So you don't only have to have PrizePicks for this. So make sure you're checking that out. Also, make sure you're checking out the X profile in the description as well, because all of our picks are posted on that profile there, 100% free, so you will never have to stress out about it. But let's go ahead and jump into our picks, and as always, I will start off with the pick of the day, which is Cade Cunningham going under 7.0 assists. Has a 3-game history versus this Orlando Magic team this season, and in his most recent matchup was February 24th, so nearly a week ago, where we saw him only have 4 assists on 31 minutes of play. Now, he did face them 2 other times this season. In his second matchup, he had 7 assists on 32 minutes and then 6 assists on 32 minutes as well. So again, the best that he has done is he has pushed this line, and that is just about it. Now, Daily Grind Fantasy is giving this a 52.9% chance of hitting with an average juice of minus 131. So as of here recently, you can tell that Cunningham has been highly efficient actually passing the ball. However, if you look at over his last 13 games, you can tell that Orlando has been the team that has held him to the lowest assist total during that time, with only 4 assists. And really, over that span as well, he's only averaging 7.8 assists, but now faces one of the top teams at defending assists, which is just the second least in all of the NBA. Orlando has not allowed more than 5 assists to the last 6 point guards, which is huge, because Orlando versus point guards, they've been dominant all season. Assist to that point guard position is the second least. And as we mentioned earlier, Cade Cunningham has struggled versus them this entire season. Recent performances, he's hit this line in 2 out of his last 5 and then 3 out of his last 8 with just the 2 pushes. So again, he's not hitting this at a high mark here, and I don't know why it's so inflated, considering that he's been so bad versus this Magic team. So Cade Cunningham going under 7.0 assists is my pick of the day, but let's go ahead and move on to the next one, and that is Immanuel Quickley going under 28.5 points plus assist. 2-game history here versus the Charlottes. He's actually played the Charlotte Hornets team, I think 4 times this season, but only 2 times as a Toronto Raptor. His most recent matchup was on February 7th, where we saw him go for 22 points plus assist in 31 minutes of play. And then in his other matchup, 24 points plus assist in 25 minutes of play. So he's hit the under in both of the matchup versus this Hornets team. Daily Grind Fantasy, though, is giving this about a 50-50 split with a 49.9% chance of hitting with an average juice of minus 116. Recent performances, however, he has hit this under in 3 out of his last 5 and then also 8 out of his last 10. Now, if you look at the entire season, which is absolutely crazy, he has hit this under in 49 out of 55 games this season, which is 89% of the time. So not only is he not hitting it really at all this season, but he also hasn't been hitting it here recently as a Raptor. He's hit the under in 8 out of his last 10. Charlotte is such a bad team defensively, and I think that's why they've inflated this line so much, but they found ways to stay consistent versus point guards. 6 out of the last 7 point guards have all hit their under versus them. Charlotte allows the 7th most points on all of the NBA, but the 3rd least amount of points to point guards. So I'm not really sure why this line is opening so high. Again, considering that he's only hit this 6 times this season, and now he's again facing this Charlotte team versus point guards who points plus assists, they allow the third least in all of the NBA. So again, love him going under 28.5 points plus assists versus this Hornets team. But let's move on to the next pick, and it's going to stay in the same game, but that is Miles Bridges going under 9.5 rebounds. Again, 2-game history versus the Toronto Raptors team. His most recent matchup was on that February 7th game where we saw him go for 8 rebounds on 38 minutes of play. And then in his first matchup of the season, he also went for another 8 rebounds. So he's had 8 rebounds in both of his games versus this Toronto team. And Daily Grind Fantasy is currently offering this line at saying it's going to have a 52.9% chance of hitting with an average juice of minus 130. Now, recent performances, Miles Bridges has actually been playing very dominant. He's hit this under in only 1 out of his last 5 and then 4 out of his last 10. But if you look back to his last 30, he's hit this under in 20 out of his last 30. So he's definitely been dominating here lately on the boards, which is, again, why I think that this line is just a little bit inflated. He has not hit this line versus this team all season long, considering now that they rank top 10 in rebounds allowed to the small forward position, which is the 9th least. Toronto did not allow a small forward to hit 9+ rebounds versus them in all of the month of February. So I don't expect that to happen here now that they're playing in March, and Miles Bridges will likely go under this 9.5 rebounds like he's done 2 times versus them already this season. But let's move on to the next pick, and that is Andrew Nembhard going under 16.5 points plus rebounds plus assists. 1-game history versus the San Antonio Spurs team on November 6th was that matchup where he had 19 points plus rebounds plus assists on only 16 minutes of play. So he did clear this over in very short, limited time. Daily Grind Fantasy, though, however, is giving this a 52.3% chance of hitting with an average juice of minus 128. Recent performances, though, he's hit this under in 3 out of his last 5 and 6 out of his last 10. So he's been hitting this under quite recently. Spurs have improved their play versus the point guards here over, especially in the last week and a half. 6 out of the last 7 point guards that they faced over that time have all hit their under, and Nembhard plays a good chunk of minutes day to day where we see him averaging 31 minutes of play over his last 10, but his usage continues to remain low. We're only seeing him have 8 field goal attempts in his last 10, as well as 2 rebounds and 4 assists over that span as well. San Antonio Spurs versus the point guard position. Points plus rebounds plus assists, they do allow the third most, but Nembhard is way down on this pecking order in this Indiana Pacers team, which is, again, why I like him going under this 16.5 points plus rebounds plus assist. Now, that brings us to our last pick of the day, and that is Josh Giddey going under 5.5 rebounds. You know, 1-game history versus his Phoenix Suns team, and that one matchup was on November 12th, where he had 6 rebounds on 32 minutes of play. Daily Grind Fantasy, though, is giving us that 53.4% chance of hitting with an average juice of minus 135. So again, that's pretty good in terms of positive EV. We would love to see that at that 54% and above, but 53.4 is not bad at all. Recent performances, though, he's hit this under in 2 out of his last 5 and 6 out of his last 10. Now, where I really like this play is that if we look how Giddey's playing time, we can tell that it's continued to drop really over these past 2 weeks. He's needed 32 minutes just to hit the over in their previous matchup versus Phoenix this season, but he's really failed to even see 27 plus minutes of play in 9 straight games. So now while Giddey is averaging high rebounds in just low minutes, he's averaging 5 rebounds in his last 10 games. He now enters a matchup versus this Phoenix Suns team who ranks top 5 in rebounds allowed, which is the 4th least in all of the NBA. And if you look at the shooting guard position in specific, they allow the 5th least. So they're top 5, not only in all of the NBA, but also to that position where Josh Giddey plays as well. And he's not going to play a ton of minutes today, most likely too. So anyways, everybody, these are my top 5 picks. Make sure you're dropping a subscribe, hitting that notification bell, because again, these videos are coming out daily. Let's try to go 5-0 today. Best of luck to y'all. Let me know in the comments as well which ones you're tailing, which ones you're fading, and again, as always, which picks I may have missed out on. Have a good Sunday. Let's have a good week moving forward. See y'all tomorrow.